Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Thank you for putting this together, Nikema and Michael. My name is Ben Lipkin. I'm here today in support of the cannabis bill and wanting it to be passed. However, there are issues that need to be changed for our hemp community to survive. We started our hemp company in 2019 with the passion of helping people heal in a natural way. I started my personal journey in the health wellness industry due to serious health issues pertaining to my wife and family after leaving my very successful career working in the NFL. We pride ourselves on being fully integrated in a seed to shelf wellness company that our community trusts. Since 2019, we have grown over 200,000 plants by hand, harvested by hand, and are one of 2 hemp farms with certified organic soil. In saying that, we really pride ourselves on integrity in our community and in our processes to gain the trust of our community. Perfect DM services over 500 health and wellness practices with high strength quality CBD products that are respectable priced so our community can afford to heal in a natural way. Our customers rely on our products to help with conditions such as autoimmune, which creates internal inflammation, Lyme disease, kids and adults on the spectrum, external inflammation, people that do not want to, they want to have a supplement other than Western medicine with many side effects. We are currently working on funding with one of the most respected hospitals in the nation on 2 FDA-controlled CBD trials. The first trial has to do with ChemoBrain. And with respect to our 5,000 milligram CBD full spectrum tincture, in which the bill is as right today, we wouldn't be able to allow to move forward with this amazing opportunity to help people. The second trial will be focused on chemo-induced neuropathy with regards to hands and feet. Lastly, we have been asked by the largest health sciences university in the nation to build their continuing education to help the health providers understand what we understand, how CBD, THC, the human body and endocannabinoid system interact. I'm asking legislation to remove CBD and industrial hemp out of the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill was federally passed in 2018. It is not recreational cannabis, nor even close to the same thing. We have had 21 recreational states pass. Not one of the 21 recreational states have lumped CBD or industrial hemp into the bill. Our company and many other hemp companies will not survive the new restrictions in the bill of an extra 8% sales tax on top of the regular sales tax. And more importantly, limiting our ingestible full spectrum CBD 30 milligram tinctures to 1,500 milligrams per 30 ml. In retrospect, our ChemoBrain trial with the most respected hospital in the nation is requesting 5,000 milligrams, which is our best seller. We are also concerned on how many jobs and families will be affected with these revisions as we get put in a box and recreational cannabis moves forward. Our community depends on us to help them live their lives in a healthier way. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ben. Ben points out a very important component of the current cannabis legalization bills, and that is the fact that CBD products are lumped in as opposed to being treated separately. And again, we are concerned that the inclusion of CBD in the current bill will decimate the hemp industry as we know it, which is unfair to farms, it's unfair to employees, it's unfair to the consumer. Next, we will hear from Glenn McElfresh and Todd Harris, who are co-owners of Clift.
Thank you, Nikema. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, both behind me and in front of me. I really appreciate you all for bringing attention to this important issue. As Nikema mentioned, my name is Glenn McElfresh, and I'm the COO and co-founder of Clift, along with my business partner, Todd Harris, who will be speaking in a moment. I've been in the adult use and marijuana and medical marijuana industry for 10 years. I started in 2014 as a bud tender in Colorado, helping veterans get sleep and be able to have a respite from the challenges caused by PTSD. I've helped cannabis. I've seen cannabis help cancer patients. I've seen cannabis help mothers who are stressed by being a parent. And what I see in HF 100 and SF 73 is in furthering that helping spirit of cannabis and the entire cannabis industry. HF 100 turns farmers into felons. Many of the people who are here today would be felons under this bill that is being pushed through the legislature. HF 100 dries up drinks. These THC beverages that many of us have come to love and count as an alcohol replacement that we built with Cliff because we have alcoholism in our family, all of a sudden go away on July 1st, 2023. And we haven't had the attention on that issue that we need. And it's not because we hadn't asked. HF 100 breaks the backs of BIPOC business owners and harms the LGBTQ community by not letting them into this industry due to restrictive application requirements and onerous capital intensive application requirements such as owning the land or owning the facility that you need prior to applying. HF 100 robs Minnesota of equity, and it's not my place to speak about that right now because there are people that are much more qualified than that, but it is worth saying again. HF 100 is Prohibition 2.0, and we can do better. HF 100 taxes the poor and the middle class with an 8% gross excise tax on every single item in a transaction. So what does that mean? If you go out to dinner and you have one THC beverage, as mom and dad, it doesn't matter what your kids had, they're getting that extra 8% tax. So your little son and daughter's sundae or dessert now all of a sudden gets taxed at 8% because you choose not to drink alcohol. HF 100 favors big out-of-state businesses over small Minnesota businesses. The only two businesses who are uncapped on Canopy are the two existing out-of-state owned medical marijuana licensees. Where's the support for small Minnesota businesses? So who is HF 100 for? Well, I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's about time somebody asked Ryan Winkler and his beverage company, Crooked, about who is writing this bill.
That's right.
And so I encourage you all to ask these questions. This is important, their lives, their jobs, and this is not a joke for people. And so I want to thank you all again. I want to thank everyone up here for organizing this and thank you all for bringing attention to this issue.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for organizing the Kima team, Friends of Hemp. My name is Todd Harris. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Plift. I think it's important to note I'm a native Minnesotan. I was born and raised in this state. Like most kids, I went away to college to learn skills, traits to bring home to my community. And I've been cast as an outsider in my own state for doing what I think is right. Access equals equity. I'll repeat that again. Access equals equity. The only way to truly have an equitable industry is to create access points that are open and conducive for all. The second you choke out hemp is the second you choke off access. As a Black man in this industry, the easiest entry point into cannabis is not MedRec. I know, we tried. We had investors look at our business model and say, how do you ever become profitable? We turned to hemp because, as Glenn mentioned, I come from a family of alcoholism. It's easier for a person in my community to get poison than it is to get a square meal.
That's right.
So if I can create a product that creates relief and optionality that doesn't include poison, we should all be praising a place where we can create access. We have convenience stores selling our products. We have, small retailers like Nothing But Hemp and some of the localized CBD stores carrying our products. That's creating access. The second we go into a limited license model, that takes away access and that ultimately creates competition, and competition chokes out accessibility. And history repeatedly shows itself that Black, brown, and underrepresented communities are the losers when access points get choked. So am I for legal cannabis? That's table stakes. The fact that we're still having this conversation in 2023 is a bit depressing. But the reality is broadening the conversation to include people who actually have skin in the game and have something to lose is what's not happening here. I've never in my life seen a bill and seen legislation that has such monumental generational impact be written by such a small group of stakeholders. This is an opportunity for Minnesota to get it right. The entire nation is looking at this state, and they can get it right by creating a place and a space where low potency THC derived from hemp and higher potency cannabis products can live in coexistence together. So I implore you guys in this room to ask hard questions, to be brave, to be bold, because the reality of it is like my business dies on July 1st, 2023. Many of the businesses up here died on July 1st, 2023. And is that the message Minnesota wants to send when we say we're for social equity and we say for accessibility and all of the things that have happened here in the last 3 years that have drawn a lens to this community around Black, brown, and underrepresented people in their treatment? Is that what we want? I think the answer is no. So we all collectively have to be brave and do the right things and ask the hard questions to make sure that Minnesota gets this right. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn and Todd. I'm glad that Todd talked about the issue of bravery. What you see standing around and beside me are folks who have the courage to be here today. There are a number of farmers who agree with the concerns that are being raised by this coalition, but who, for a number of reasons, were not courageous enough to stand up today. And for good reason. I don't fault them. We know that this is a highly politically charged issue. We know that there are false narratives that have been put out there about what this bill will do. We are here to set the record straight. And to those farmers who did not feel comfortable showing up because of being concerned about political backlash or their businesses being impacted or losing friends and social connections for speaking their truth, we want you to know we stand with you too. We see you. But that is why we're here standing in the gap, because someone has to be brave enough to speak the truth and to hold elected officials accountable for a bill that is fair and equitable and does not disadvantage those who have been doing this work for many, many years. The last speaker that I want to call up is Michael Brinkman, Jeff Brinkman. I'm thinking about you again, Michael. Jeff Brinkman from Superior Cannabis. And after Jeff speaks, I would like for Ben to come back up and talk about some of the clients that they have been able to serve who are parents whose children have a medical need for the products that they serve. We don't want parents to be left out of this equation. They are a part of the reason why we have such a robust CBD industry to begin with. So with that, Jeff Brinkman, Superior Cannabis.
Thank you, Nikema. Thank you, Michael. Jeff Brinkman from Superior Cannabis. I'm a cannabis farmer. But I also have, I've been doing that for 5 years, but I also have an insurance business that I've been running for 26 years, which I'm helping to finance my hemp venture and my cannabis venture. We were really excited about legalization. We still are. We feel that it's very important for Minnesota to move forward. But there's a few problems, and we're trying to address these problems, as everybody has said here. But one thing I've looked at, and I was at the first hearing and spoke about having to revamp businesses 6 and 8 months at a time and try and run a business with a 6-month window and not the next 8-month window. And that's what we're doing right now. So our first things that are hitting are July 1st. We still haven't signed up for our hemp license. That's due April 30th or April, at the end of April. Just for the fact that we don't even know if what we're making right now is going to be legal. And we have about 25,000 customers that not all of them are active, but we have a good chunk of those customers that are repeat customers, loyalty customers. They aren't interested in the THC market. They're interested in the CBD market. And if we want to do both for all of our customers, we either have to split apart our family business. I mean, if that makes sense, I would like someone to explain that to me, because I feel we can be dual license. I feel we can keep separate books. If we have to make separate rooms, we can make separate rooms. But to ban somebody who's been in it and actually got a lot of education done in the community. I think this is ridiculous. The other thing is a 280-page bill. So now what do we do with a 280-page bill when nobody in the legislature can coherently walk a business model through the bill? That doesn't even include the rules and the regulations that are going to be piled on top of that. So how many pages is it going to be for a plant? Let's be realistic. This is why activists are not for the bill right now. It should be passed, but it should be changed. We've gone through 18 versions of this bill, and it's still major changes, major structural changes. It needs those. One part would be to remove hemp out of the bill, to remove the controversy. But some people are not willing to do that. And I think you have to ask yourselves why. In 2022, I'm gonna let this out. 2022, a medical cannabis company sued the state to compete with CBD edibles, low THC edibles, 5 milligrams. They wanted to compete with hemp using marijuana. That was the complaint. You can look it up. So instead of that happening, they dropped the lawsuit, and lo and behold, some of that language appears in the bill. Why would that be? I'm going to say it's because we're in the same state that created a medical marijuana duopoly. And it wasn't created by medical marijuana. It was created by our legislators. So ask me if I'm skeptical. I am. I'm hoping these changes, I've been told many changes would happen. 18 versions of the bill. Those changes have not happened. And now we're supposed to let it go in a back room in a conference committee with who knows what influence is on the bill. So let's be honest. I'm excited about legalization, so don't get me wrong, and don't hate my company that way. Legalize and be fair about it and be small business oriented and tell the truth. Thank you.
That was really powerful on top of what you all have already heard. And it just speaks to the truth and the seriousness of what is happening in this situation. I would like for Ben Lipton to come back up and talk briefly about what happens with regard to his clients, customers, parents whose children need their products, and the impact that could have if this bill passes as is.
Thank you, Nikema. Again, co-founder of North Star Hemp, Carpe Diem. CBD has been our mainstay product for 3.5 years for 500 health professionals. That is not an easy stake. It takes a ton of education and trusting us as a company and putting out great products that people can afford. Mainly the mothers and fathers throughout the United States that depend on our strong oil, full spectrum tinctures, 2,500 milligrams per 30 ml and 5,000 milligrams per 30 ml, federally compliant under the hemp bill with 0.3 THC. They rely on us. My business partner Neil and I get calls from mothers all over the nation, countlessly throughout the week, asking us if we can help them. And you know what we say? We would very be happily to. We sell our $165 tincture, which is respectable price in our market, to these suffering mothers and kids for $80 because we care. We care about our community. We care about giving our community another option than Western medicine that doesn't have the side effects or addiction. The largest health sciences university in the nation wouldn't task us with building out the education if they didn't trust us. One of the largest hospitals in the United States of America wouldn't ask us to join in on 2 chemo-induced FDA CBD trials if they didn't trust us. We need to trust and bridge the gap between the legislators and our community behind us. There's over 700 hemp farmers that are going to be affected by this, along with the low dose THC federally compliant 0.3 drinks and gummies that our community has come to love. An alternative from alcohol, putting people's smiles on people's faces, driving revenue to small businesses throughout the state that were barely being able to survive with inflation, with everything happened in the state. If we have coffee shops saying thank you every day, please, please fight for us, because your products are helping us keep the doors open. Same for breweries, same for chiropractors' offices and acupuncture offices. Our other brand is called You Betcha Cannabis Company. The reason we chose the name resonates with Minnesotans, puts a smile on your face, but more importantly, it brings the stigma down off low dose THC products. We honestly weren't going to jump into the low dose market. We let it roll out for a month. Within that month, we had 200 health professionals, doctors asking us if we were going to provide these products for medicinal use. So we moved into that market as well. I truly appreciate all of you showing up and everyone showing up here. If you'd like any more education, I'll be around. I love educating the community. I love educating the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have one additional speaker, Ted Galati, Willows Keep Farm and Hemp Maids, Minnesota.
Thank you, Nikema, and thank you, Ben, for organizing this call. So we are hemp farmers. We've been farming hemp since 2018. And I've been at the committee meetings as these bills have passed through the House and the Senate and testified over 10 times. I've asked these legislators over and over again to take hemp out of the bill. SF 73 has hemp listed 909 times and only has marijuana listed roughly 50 times. House Bill 100 has hemp in there 1,251 times. Yes, hemp's in there that much. Marijuana, again, is only listed 73 times. We are talking about a legal marijuana recreational bill. I understand it's adult use cannabis. Yes, this is all cannabis sativa, but hemp is below 0.3% THC. Marijuana is above 0.3% THC. The medical marijuana mafia, which I call the duopoly in Minnesota, they are the ones that are afraid of hemp and hemp competing with their marijuana. The recreational marijuana will be taxed at 18%. The hemp-derived cannabinoid products, consumer products, and the hemp-derived low-dose products will be taxed at 18% or 15%, excuse me. The issue we have with that is, as hemp farmers, we are actually carrying this legislation. If this bill goes through, how are they going to fund the Office of Cannabis Management? Well, that doesn't actually start until 2025. So in the interim, they're going to tax starting July 1st, 2023. If these products are allowed to be on the shelves, these drinks are allowed to be in the coolers, they will begin to tax them at 15%. And that will carry until we have the legal marijuana recreational. The medical, on the other hand, will have zero tax. The application fee for a medical license, if they allow more than two, again, I will still call it the medical marijuana mafia because it will be controlled. Their application fee will be $250. There will be no licensing fee, no renewal fee. On the hemp side, the licensing fee will be, or application fee will be $250. The licensing fee will be $500. And every year after that, it'll be $500. Plus there's transportation license required. There's delivery license required. There's processor license required, and also manufacturer license requires. So as you can see, they're going to gain a lot from taxing them, and licenses and applications are taxes. It's going to be passed down to the consumer. So who are they really hurting? They are hurting the consumer in Minnesota. The citizens of Minnesota need better. They don't need to be taxed. I mean, a regular general excise sales tax is fine. That's what we tax our products at now. Let's leave it as such. We don't need to add an additional 8%. And as Glenn pointed out, that will be on the gross receipt sale. So if I sell a low dose THC derived from hemp drink and they buy t-shirts, merchandise, other gifts in my store, the whole gross receipt jumps up that 8%. That's not needed. That's robbing from the people. And to be honest with you, that takes taxation without representation. Because if a lot of these people, some of these people don't even want the marijuana. They don't want the recreational marijuana. They don't want the medical marijuana. That's why they come to us. So if they're coming to us for the CB products and the hemp-derived products, and you tax them to carry along the recreational marijuana, something's utterly wrong with that. And then the medical side, I know people are sick and infirm, but they come into our store sick and infirm and we're helping them. And in the medical side, it's zero sales tax, people. So no sales tax from the medical side. And that's really what's going to balloon, because this medical marijuana mafia is going to grow by 1 or 2 licenses. They have unrestricted canopies. If I, as a farmer, decide to get a recreational license or a micro business or a meso business, right now I have unrestricted canopy size, and that should be the case because I grow, not a lot, but I grow over 5 acres of hemp, and I have another farm I'm going to be growing another 10 acres of hemp. And if I get a recreational license, I'm restricted to 15,000 square feet. That's a third of an acre. How can I put a hemp maze in a third of an acre? That's not much of a hemp maze. So I need that canopy size. So if I do choose to get the marijuana side or marijuana license, for one, it says you cannot have a hemp business. Again, is my wife supposed to take my hemp business? We're a family business. We want to stay a hemp business. But if I want to get a license for marijuana, I should be allowed to get a license to grow marijuana. And maybe I'm restricted to 15,000 square feet. But if I want to grow 1,000 acres of hemp, I should be able to grow 1,000 acres of hemp. Now, the other thing, Mel, my child, works at our store. Has worked at our store since 2019. Mel wants to take over the farm, run the family farm. However, this bill, if it goes through July 1st, 2023, Mel can't sell our products. Mel's got to be 21 years of age or older. So anyone that's going to sell products in our store or locations will have to be 21 years of age or older. Mel's 18, a senior, and won't be able to work at the farm. Now, it's even questionable if Mel will be able to touch the plants, because the bill says that. It says no one under 21 can touch the plants if you get a license. So yes, I'm talking a marijuana license, but it doesn't clearly state that for hemp as well. So if I get a license because I'm a hemp retailer of these low dose THC drinks or the hemp derived consumer products, Mel may not be able to touch the plants on the farm. Mel helps me cultivate. Mel helps me harvest. Mel helps me process. Mel makes products in the store because we've got pre-rolls and we have tea and all these things. That goes away. Mel won't be on the farm for 3 years. What if I live on that farm? What if I'm a dairy farmer and all of a sudden you come in and you save my family? We're going to tax the crap out of milk and nobody under 21 can milk the cows or touch the milk. What is going on, people? This is a plant. It's a medicinal plant. It's been around for thousands of years. There's over 50,000 different applications of this industrial hemp plant. Hemp is the future. It's the only plant that can shelter you, clothe you, feed you, and heal you. And I'm fed up. I am fed up. And then we talk about interstate commerce. The 2018 Farm Bill made that clear. Hemp is an interstate commerce commodity. It's a farm commodity. You have the right to move it across state lines. Well, now there's an importation ban. And we have a farm in Wisconsin. How am I going to get my products over the bridge into Red Wing to get into Minnesota? I can't do that anymore? That's ridiculous. We don't need an importation ban. Okay, and I know they say, oh, well, we're going to correct that. We're going to have a license for that. Oh, good. So now you're going to license me with that too. And you're going to have set up importation declarations that'll have to go through the Office of Cannabis Management. And the commissioner of the Office of Cannabis Management is appointed by the governor. And they'll be part of the medical marijuana mafia. So those are my frustrations. And we just need to talk sensibility about this bill. If they can't get hemp out of the bill, I am supportive of legislation and I'm supportive of more access to this plant because it's a plant medicine. And we won't be even having this discussion in 10 years because it'll be legal. But the point of the matter is they're not doing it right. Few will win and many will lose. And the hemp farmers, the hemp processors, and the hemp retailers will lose. So please, I urge you through these committee stops, take hemp out of the bill. This is a legal marijuana recreational bill. And that's what it is. Thank you very much for your time.
They made this bill about us, but without us.
There you are.
Nope, that's my only thing. That has been the entire process. It's about us, but without us.
She's absolutely right. These folks are the experts, along with many other farmers throughout the state of Minnesota, whose voices are not being heard and who are very upset. As I started working with these individuals and hearing their concerns, I repeatedly heard two names, Ryan Winkler and the MN is Ready Coalition, as standing in the way of progress, equity, and justice. It is absolutely unacceptable and it's unconscionable. We even had folks who are part of our coalition receiving calls saying, you're right, we agree with the changes that you want to make to the bill, just cancel the press conference and we'll make it happen. Why would we believe that when they've had all this time to make the changes happen? So again, that is why we are here today. At this time, we will take questions.
To any of the business owners, what is the reaction from lawmakers when you tell them these taxes, fees, and regulations could very well put you out of business?
Thank you for the question. The reaction is, we hear you, we do nothing, which unfortunately is commonplace in the political systems that we live in. You know, we hear your voice, we're here to advocate for your voice, but then we do nothing. Well, I can speak for this group because I've spoken to many of these individuals in private and in public, is that we're tired of waiting idly by for someone to save us. This is our opportunity to tell Minnesotans that they deserve better. Legislators that we are here to help. We are in support of, and I can tell you, my partner and I have reached out to these very legislators multiple times, only to be met with no action or not met with radio silence. And so while we in spirit hear and see them, you know, actions are now starting to speak louder than words, or the lack of actions are speaking louder than words.
Does anyone else want to respond to that question? Any other business owners?
And about what the impact these taxes and fees and regulations would have specifically on your business?
And thank you for the question. And so there has not been a response. And I have testified along with Ted and many of the other fine folks up here at over like, I want to say 14 or 15 committee meetings. And this past House Taxes Committee, I talked about the 8% gross excise tax actually impacting Minnesotans across the state. And there was no response. I have directed questions directly to the authors of this bill and have been called a liar. Have been told that I'm neglecting certain parts of the bill that actually do nothing. So I would say that the response from really anyone about how this impacts, our business in particular, and by extension, many of the other businesses up here, has been a radio silence. And these are big issues that impact not only the businesses, but consumers of Minnesota. And the radio silence is concerning, as well as the false cries of all is well by certain players in the space, folks who are coalition members in their own regard of other coalitions. It's concerning that there has not been actually any conversation about these important issues that affect businesses and Minnesotans of all kinds across the state.
Question. I'm trying to gauge at what point would these additional regulations or taxes be more manageable? I ask this because there feels like some consensus, even with the people who wrote the THC edibles that became legal last year, there wasn't enough regulation. There was no state licensing, and that the Board of Pharmacy felt like they were not equipped to go out and even know where these products are being sold, enforcement, all of that. So there was some discussion of that needs to happen regardless. There is a separate bill that would impose a lower taxation excess gross receipts. I think it's 2.5% instead of 8%. So all that is to say is like, is there something beyond the status quo that you guys would support in terms of regulation and taxation?
Sure, and I definitely will step aside in just a moment because I'm sure plenty of other folks have great responses to that as well. And it's not my place to speak for everyone about how they think that this industry should be regulated. Again, I think this is about how all of us as a community need to come together and make sensible regulation for ourselves and have the regulators chime in on that too. I think that you bring up a good question, but the threshold issue here is not what is sensible regulation is our business allowed to exist? And in the current bill today, that's not possible. We have to go out of business on July 1st, 2023, due to various definitional changes, due to various licensing requirements. And so I would love to talk sensible regulation, but it doesn't make sense for me to acquiesce that my business doesn't exist after July 1st, 2023. So I think it's a bit early to talk about what are sensible regulations, which, I'm sure we all agree that like having the ability to punish bad actors is a necessary and frankly slightly underdeveloped part of we're playing into a narrative that ultimately harms all of our businesses and turns many of us into felons. So I don't personally think that it's appropriate to talk about what the right legislation and what the right regulations look like until we have guarantees that we are able to continue to exist and continue to support our families and communities and Minnesotans across the state.
So you're saying that the regulations in the bill are part of what would push you out, right? So that's why I asked.
So I'm going to kind of try to answer that. So 151.72, which is the Minnesota state statute, that's the one that you're referring to with the Board of Pharmacy. When that was first enacted, the low dose 5 milligram, I would like, well, low potency, but I like the word low dose better because it's just as potent. But anyway, THC is the most psychoactive part of the plant, yes. And it is in the cannabis plant. Any cannabis plant is going to have it. Hemp is below 0.3% THC. And when they first enacted 151.72, it didn't even say that we could put it in edible form or into consumer form like a drink. So it allowed us to sell it, and that was, after the 2018 Farm Bill. 2019 was when I started our business and started processing for CBD and selling CBD products. And then I believe 2020 is when they enacted 151.72. So last year, they decided that they needed to clarify that because, again, it didn't say that it could be an edible form or a consumer drink or consumer product. So they went ahead and they enacted it, made that correction. However, we need to talk about those 5 milligram low dose single serving THC products from hemp. Those are actually, yes, they've always been legal. The 2018 Farm Bill made that legal. It said anything below 0.3% Delta 9 THC is legal. So you can go to Wisconsin and you can get a gummy, a hemp-derived gummy that's higher than 5 milligrams. You can get a 50 milligram gummy in Wisconsin. Because under the 2018 Farm Bill, that is still a legal product. It's below 0.3% Delta 9 THC by weight. It's an industrial hemp product, people. So what Minnesota actually did last year is they made it more restricted. They were trying to restrict the Delta 8 products, and I understand that. So what has that done? Well, it's just moved Delta 8 outside the state. People can still purchase it online and bring it back into the state. That's legal. You could all go on there right now and purchase a 50 milligram Delta 9 THC gummy from Wisconsin and have it sent to your mailbox. That's legal. So the real thing I'm trying to say is they've restricted it further. Now, whether you believe we should restrict it or we should license it, that is a totally different discussion, like Glenn just said. But let's talk about alcohol. Come on, people. Alcohol is poison. It kills you.
Yes.
It actually strips your gut of bacteria. You sterilize your gut when you drink alcohol. That's why you feel like crap for 2 to 3 days after getting drunk. You shouldn't be drinking that stuff. It's poison. But when we look at these drinks, most of these drinks are coupled. They have other cannabinoids in it. It's not just straight THC. So if you get a THC drink, most of them have CBD in it. There will be other cannabinoids in that drink or that gummy. And that's what we really should be talking about, is the health benefits of this. Yes, legalizing recreational marijuana, it's different. It is a drug. You know what? In 151.72, it says hemp is not a drug. The state last year said hemp is not a drug. The 2018 Farm Bill says hemp is not a drug. Marijuana is a drug, especially in concentration form. When you're talking waxes that are 95 to 99% THC, that's like taking a cocoa leaf and refining it to cocaine. It's a drug. Hemp is not a drug. All right, I'll stop on that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions?
I have one more about, one of the big amendments that came down in the last couple of weeks. They did have a separate, license for hemp. They say that was to address some concerns of hemp, growers and producers, that they would be hit with some of those federal penalties, the 280E, if they were to have kind of a, what they just wanted to stay with hemp and not deal with marijuana at all. Someone address, is that not sufficient? Does that plug at least some concern?
Yeah, so I'm so glad you asked about that, because the reality is that the additional licensure does nothing to address the core issues. The products being sold today are edible cannabinoid products, right? That's what 151.72 says that everyone is selling if you're selling a low potency hemp. So an edible cannabinoid product in these new legislate, right, in SF 73 and HF 100 is an adult use cannabis product. I believe that's on page 2 or 3 of HF 100. You can check out the definition. It says adult use cannabis products include edible cannabinoid products. On July 1st, 2023, you need a license to sell any cannabis product, which, it means illegal marijuana per the federal definition. So the large amendment that was supposed to help many of these businesses in the hemp industry did nothing to address the core fundamental issue, which is that hemp products are now all of a sudden marijuana products. They're cannabis products as the state, kind of it's co-opted cannabis instead of marijuana. So our businesses will no longer be allowed to sell these products on July 1st, 2023. And that large amendment did nothing to address that. And cries and, kind of people saying that it did something to address it are just, either false, but they're false either because of lack of understanding or intentionally misrepresenting the substance of these definitions, which are at the core of what we are allowed to do, along with our authorized actions, which specifically state those lower potency hemp edible manufacturers and retailers are not allowed to sell edible cannabinoid products. So that bill or that amendment is not helpful for those of us that are up here, many of us who aren't.
So even a hemp retailer license, you're saying you're not allowed to sell your hemp edible at your retail location?
Correct, yeah, the edible cannabinoid products are not allowed to be sold. And I'd be happy to pull up the paper to show you as well.
And you're saying that's because of the definition of what they say it's not.
Of an edible cannabinoid product and an adult use cannabis product. So I'm fairly confident it's definition 3 in HF 1.
Is there a point at which you feel like it's maybe better that something not passed this year, it's worked out over the interim and they pick it up next year?
I'm not going to comment on that one just because I think that there's far too much at stake to have anything be misconstrued. So I'm just going to focus today on some of the more factual issues of bringing to light some of the more nuanced issues like that definitional question.
But if nothing passes this year, July 1st concern you have.
Well, that's up to the legislators to decide what passes this year, and I hope that they hear our concerns today.
Can you clarify for me, in terms of THC edibles and marijuana-derived THC edibles, they both theoretically get you high. Why do you think the hemp edible shouldn't be taxed?
Well, I appreciate you asking that question. I'd love to clarify that, it's not that I don't think that they should be taxed. It's that I do think that they should be taxed appropriately. I think that the gross excise tax that really harms Minnesota, right? Like, please tell me why, like, if I go out to, have dinner with my family and I don't drink, right? And I choose to enjoy THC seltzer because I want to be, enjoy a social moment with my friends and family. Like, it doesn't make sense that my friends' kids, that their meal should be taxed an additional 8%. So I support reasonable taxation, right? Like, I totally understand that. And again, that's me speaking personally, right? I don't want to speak for other folks if you're on their views on taxation. That's a business choice. But I believe that the gross excise tax is unfair and unfairly targets, just Minnesota consumers who are ultimately going to be footing the bill for that.
You couldn't have said it better.
Any other questions?
Sorry. The licensing structures to apply for a license of any of these, I don't know, there's like a dozen licenses. The social equity factors, they say that'll be 25%, but there's also like putting forward a business proposal, putting forward safety, all sorts of things. So I'm wondering, because I forget who said it, but someone talked about how you being in the hemp industry would be a disadvantage for you to try to apply to be a marijuana grower. And couldn't you make the case that you operating in a business would be one of those things you can put on an application and show you have a good business model?
I want to that's a great question. And I think the answer to that question as you framed it is yeah, right? The experience in the hemp industry should be viewed as a benefit if you want to choose to participate in the marijuana industry. But right now, that's a one-way door, right? For many of these folks up here that have built their hemp businesses over the past 5 years or so, right? Saying goodbye to all of that is like a very risky business decision. I think, the part that I want to just bring to everyone's attention about the application process is that it's not just the business plan requirements, but frankly, I think are good, right? These are very complex issues to run. You have to deal with business challenges like 280E, seed to sale tracking. And that's, that makes running a marijuana business very hard. I've been responsible for $80 million in gross revenue on a marijuana business before. I truly understand those issues. The issue here becomes access, right? Where you need to have a veteran on your team if you want to even have a chance at winning these licenses. I encourage you all to look at Illinois' cannabis bill. The application requirements are exactly the same between Minnesota and Illinois. They are verbatim the same. I'm not making this up. The only difference is between financial plan, it's financial situation. That is the only difference in wording for 8 different application category requirements. And what we saw in Illinois was that only 100% of all adult use cannabis licenses went to veterans, and that not even necessarily veterans who have been impacted by the war on drugs. And so I think the issue that I've seen is that we don't want to have a homogenous group of licensees. We want to have a group that's as diverse as the people up here today. That's where I think the most important, one of the more important issues is in terms of this application scoring. So I'll let somebody else add that.
Can you repeat that question just one more time?
The question about the application, the criteria to be considered for a license.
Right, so,
There's the social equity piece that's important, but there's also, they will weigh your business proposal, your safety plan, all of that, and that would you be in hemp business already, not, help you, not hurt you? I'm trying to understand that.
I think it would help if there was some dual licensing provisions where you could do both without being taxed as both. What they don't talk about is the amount of hemp that's extracted to say gets for like a low dose edible, is about 600 times the amount that it takes for marijuana or from marijuana extraction. So there's a disadvantage there. So if you take the same product that doesn't have nearly the same margins and you move that with additional taxation, you move it into a cannabis space where you lose any type of deduction. So you basically, we would be starting to do hemp basically for free to provide to our customers, which is fine. But in order to, we're basically scrapping one business to enter another and making nothing on that half of the business in the bill. If that makes sense. Under the marijuana.
Right, you can be under the cannabis license, you can be grow hemp and marijuana, but it,
But your canopy goes down to 15,000 square feet. That's what I was saying. So if you get if I'm a hemp farmer, and let's say I have 100 acres. I have 100 acres, and all of a sudden, like in Jeff's case, he's a dual partner business, right? So if he decides, they could break off, and one could be marijuana and one could be hemp, and then the hemp side would not get restricted. But for me, or if they decide to keep their company together, if they get a marijuana license, I'm not gonna say adult use cannabis, marijuana license, so they get the recreational marijuana license, and they get a micro, I'm just gonna talk about the micro, because there's a micro on the meso. But if they get the micro, it says the canopy limit is 1,500 square feet. That's for the whole thing, now that's for the hemp. So and because remember I said you can't, in these structures, it says you cannot have a hemp business. So once you get a marijuana business, the hemp's gotta go away. Oh, sorry about that. So the hemp's gotta go away, so the hemp goes away. And even though I can still grow CBD under there, that's part of that 15,000 square foot canopy, which is a third of an acre. And let's get realistic. If you're gonna grow marijuana in Minnesota, you're growing it indoors. You know, we've got some pretty harsh weather, plus we've got feral hemp throughout the state left over from World War II, and that will pollinate all your females. And marijuana people don't want females being seeded because then you lose your cannabinoid production. So we're talking intensive farming inside industrial with the power pulling from our power grid and the resources of water. You got to dehumidify all these things. So all I'm saying is that hemp to me is the long road. Hemp is the future. And we're not allowing that.
You know, Jeff, I just wanted to say one more thing about access and equity. One of the things that I think is getting a bit lost in some of these very technical questions that are extremely important is that BIPOC and underrepresented communities, the communities most impacted by the war on drugs, are the ones going to get left behind.
That's right.
Why is that? It's because the cost of operating a legal marijuana business, a dispensary model business that is subject to 280E, there are no economies of scale in that business. There are no manufacturing economies of scale. There are no production economies of scale. That cost is passed on to the consumer. Well, unfortunately, the world we live in, many times, Black, brown, underrepresented communities are also those that are most financially stressed.
That's right.
So what you're doing by taking this model and pushing it into a corporate cannabis model is you're actually ripping access to the plant away from people who are the most impacted. And I don't want that to fall by the wayside, because yes, all these technical questions and concerns are very, very real. But when people announce that they're building something because they want to have a positive impact on Black, brown, underrepresented people, and the people who actually suffer from the war on drugs, you have to invite them to the table and you have to hear their concerns about why and when will they be choked off from this, what I would call next gold rush. So.
Absolutely. And I just want to piggyback off of that. One of the things that we know will happen when communities of color have reduced access or lack access due to socioeconomic circumstances, which are well documented in the state of Minnesota, that pushes people back to the below ground market, which then reopens the door to the criminalization of people in our community who have already been historically disenfranchised, experienced discrimination, and are still being impacted through the criminal justice system, which, as this happens, it further breaks down the family structures in our communities. So it is a real issue that has not been adequately addressed. And I'm saying this not only as an attorney, not only as an activist, but also as a business owner in the space. It is something that needs to be taken seriously. And I'm not just thinking about me, Todd, or Michael, but thinking about those who are not here, whose voices haven't been heard, and who have not anticipated these kinds of problems when they make a decision to enter this space. That is their rightful decision. Beyond that, the Office of Cannabis Management is going to make a decision regarding how many social equity licenses will even be granted. We have no idea. So how many people who want to enter this industry and create generational wealth for their families will be excluded based on the current written proposal in the bill regarding social equity, where just about anyone can get a social equity grant, although there will be limited licenses. Again, unfairness baked into the bill, and we're being told that this is equity, this is fair, this is gonna help people. But all you've heard are the concerns that folks have who actually want to see legalization happen in this state. Michael, is there anything that you want to add?
No, I think that's.
Thank you. Are there any more questions?
I have a question. Would you all agree that taxation ultimately emboldens the underground market and ultimately imposes an inflationary tax on the lower and middle economic classes there, and hence disabling the fact that there's access to cannabis or even wellness products?
Yes.
Thank you.
Todd, do you want to expound upon that?
I think we can all agree that responsible taxation and regulation is needed. Like, I think we've all said that over and over and over again. Again, the victims, the people who should lose shouldn't be everyday Minnesotans, right? And that continues to be the part that I think gets lost, is that it's the people in this room, it's the everyday Minnesotan that will lose when optionality and accessibility go away. And so, should there be responsible taxes? Yes, I think we all agree that, but it's done in a guise where people like the ones up here are part of the consultative process. The actual communities that are impacted are taken into consideration. And then we do that in a collaborative way, not an exclusive way. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, this concludes our press conference. Thank you all for taking the time to be here. And please feel free to come up and speak with any of the folks who are here. They're happy to answer your questions. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.